So as we get into the summer and into the early fall, everybody has already forgotten about a senko. Nobody wants to throw one anymore, but what we're going to talk about today is how I fish a senko different throughout the rest of the year to catch more bass than a lot of other people, because everybody else forgets about one of the greatest baits ever invented just because they want to throw it on a wacky rig. Well, today we're going to talk about how to throw it different than a wacky rig. And at the end of this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down my 3 favorite senkos and the reasons why I like them for the different situations in that I like to throw them. So stick around at the end of this video. You guys are not going to want to miss that. So probably one of my favorite reasons for throwing a senko offshore a lot with a shaky head, on a Carolina rig, on a Texas rig, is literally just because it feels like it's made to go through cover. Just with the body design on it, I feel like I can fish it through almost anything, especially grass. Even on this shaky head, it just worms its way through grass so much better than almost any other worm. And whether you're throwing the Z-Man bang stick, whether you're throwing the Yamamoto senko, you're throwing yum dingers, you're throwing the shimmy sticks we talked about, it doesn't matter. It just seems like that style worm loves to go through grass the easiest compared to every other style worm. And I don't know if it's because the fall rate slows down so much better or just because they're perfect for Texas rigging or hiding that hook, but it just seems like they go through grass phenomenal. I think that leads to us getting more bites on a senko, and I think it's one of the things that attributes so much to how well a senko fishes. So a lot of times when people think about throwing a shaky head or throwing a senko, they kind of think about throwing it on a spinning rod, and that couldn't be more accurate. When I throw a senko on a shaky head or when I throw it on some of these other finesse techniques, a spinning rod is a must-have for me. When people think about throwing shaky heads and they think about throwing offshore worms, a lot of times they're thinking about throwing big sticks. They're thinking about throwing them 7.6, 7.10s, those big 15, 20-pound lines. Well, those fish see a lot of that, and because it's fun and because it's easy, a lot of guys do that. And so what I like to do is I really like to downsize it. This is that Arc Invoker Tour 7.1 medium heavy paired with that Arc G5, and then it's that Cortland 10-pound master braid. And so I use a 10-pound leader on there as well. I throw that shaky head senko on there, and it just does such a great job at getting down easy and staying down. And you get a lot more natural fall rate because of that. Because that line is so thin, that bait just kind of spirals down real nice, real slow. And that's what makes this bait so deadly, is when a senko falls, it literally has a nice thick body and that straight tail. It just kind of spirals down to the bottom. And when it hits that bottom, stands up and then kind of falls over, and it has that do nothing look. And so as it's down there, it just has that almost that Ned rig quality where those fish just can't find anything wrong with it. You know what I mean? Most people this time of year are throwing your lizards, you're throwing your curly tails, you're throwing your big trick worms, you're throwing your big size stuff. But everybody puts away the greatest bait ever as soon as they get deeper. And that's why I pick it up, and that's why I like to continue to throw it even into the summer and early fall months. So I'm pretty sure nobody can actually quantify why fish like a bait that looks just like this, other than the natural fall rate of it. But even then, when you take away the natural fall rate of it, this bait still just gets flat out bit. Whether you're throwing it on a shaky head, whether you're throwing it on a drop shot, whether you're Texas rigging this bait, it just flat out gets bit. Which begs the question, why do people put it down after May? People think of this bait as just a skipping bait, as just a shallow water bait, but why not fish it deeper too? So I spent a lot of time around clear water spotted bass, and one of the things that I learned extremely quickly was the greatest bait for spotted bass ever invented was a senko, was a wacky rigged or a Nico rigged senko. But what I ended up finding when I was throwing that was I caught so many largemouth and smallmouth included into those spotted bass that a light bulb kind of went off as to why aren't I throwing this bait sooner? Because right now, in August, it is the toughest time of year physically in every part of the country. Until that fall starts to cool down, now is the hardest time to catch fish, and this is a bait that will still catch you fish even when it's tough. So probably the coolest thing about a senko is there's literally no wrong way to fish it. You know, most guys throw it on a wacky rig or a Nico rig like we have here, and there's nothing wrong with that. But as those fish get deeper, you could literally put it on a dozen different rigs and still catch just as many fish. You know, some of those popular ways, throw it on a shaky head, throw it on a Carolina rig, throw it on all these different rigs, and you can still catch a ton of fish. And so I never get why people put it down. You know, drop shotting it on a wacky rig style catches a ton of fish, but people overlook it as just a wacky rig or just a shallow bait when there's so many more applications that you can do with it. So I really wanted to shoot this video because I really feel like it just gets overlooked as far as a senko or a stick bait goes, as far as all applications out deeper. And so some of my favorite rigging techniques for out deeper that go well with the three baits that I'm going to talk about next are rigging it on a shaky head. Is probably my first go-to. It just does phenomenal on a shaky head rigged offshore because, like I talked about, it's basically a bigger Ned rig. And it just does a great job at getting bit because it's a bait that we're all familiar with and we have that confidence to throw it even when we're not just shallow. The other way that I really like to fish it is on a Carolina rig. I think that gets vastly overlooked. You know, you're taking all of the great Wacky rig and weedless, or you're taking all of the great weightless you're taking all the great weightless components of a senko and now just presenting it to those fish out deeper to catch them doing the same thing you do shallow, which is something that people just, I don't know why people forget about it, but they do. They just forget that it works amazing for those fish. The other thing that I think people forget a senko is good for is Texas rigging it in grass. It's one of the greatest flipping baits out there. You know, when fish aren't eating traditional flipping baits, your beavers, your chunks, your craws, people always throw this. Start out with that this time of year and you'll get more bites because they just flat out love this style bait. But now stick around for my favorite 3 senko baits that are out there on the market. So with all the different senkos out there, there's 3 that I really like to throw, and I'm going to break those 3 down right now. The first of which, it's hard to beat a Gary Yamamoto senko. The Yamamoto senko was the original, and it is probably still one of the absolute best. The only downfall of a Yamamoto is that it tears apart fairly quickly, and that it has the fastest sink rate out of all of the other senkos. So what does that mean for you? What that means is I like to throw this bait when I'm fishing deeper water. If I am skipping docks that are deeper than 4 feet, I will go to a Yamamoto senko because I can fish it faster. But if I'm Texas rigging a senko, I never go with a Yamamoto because it falls apart so fast because there's something called abrasion sands in there that tear that bait apart. It's phenomenal for Nico rigging in deep water for spotted bass. It's phenomenal for deeper docks. Wacky rigging, amazing. But I don't like it when it comes to shallow docks or fishing around grass or cover or anything like that if I'm Texas rigging a senko. Another one of my favorites is the Z-Man Zinkers. This is actually the softest of all of the senkos, and it originally starts out feeling just like a Yamamoto. The sink rate is similar, but the salt actually dissolves super fast what they put in here, and it doesn't have any of the abrasion sands in it to make it stay heavy. And so once the salt dissolves, this bait is super, super elastec and super, super soft. And so I love this one for when I'm Nico rigging or if I'm flipping around grass. This bait is absolutely phenomenal for that. I do not recommend Wacky rigging this one though, because you will go through, like, you get like 3 good casts out of it and then the salt dissolves and it sucks. It floats. And so you don't want to use it unless I'm using outside weight. Something like a Nico rig or I'm flipping this bait. It's phenomenal for that because it holds up against literally everything. And so you can use like 2 baits all day. But as far as using it for Wacky rigging, don't recommend it. The last one, which is a very underrated senko, this is probably one of my absolute favorites, is going to be that Strike King Shimmy Stick. That Strike King Shimmy Stick has the exact same fall rate as a Yum Dinger, which is a lot of people's favorite. But a Yum Dinger, when it falls, it tends to fall to one side. It doesn't fall perfectly straight, but a Shimmy Stick does. A Shimmy Stick falls super, super slow, and it's actually one of the most durable senkos out there. I don't know what they did to it, but it fishes so, so strong in the fact that it has a super slow sink rate. You can catch a ton of fish out of it, and it just holds up really, really well. And so if I'm fishing really, really shallow docks, or if I'm flipping a bait, this is another great flipping bait because they sell these ones at Walmart and you can get them for like $3 a pack. Like, they're one of the cheapest ones out there and they're actually one of my absolute favorites. But again, I will have those linked down below so you can get every one of those. But this is another one of my absolute go-tos. If you're thinking about getting some senkos, if you're thinking about getting some Wacky rigs, below I will have affiliate links where I will have all of my favorite shaky head Wacky rig, my favorite baits linked down below, so that way you can get those baits directly from the places that I get them, and those affiliate links actually help me as well, so you'll be supporting the channel as well as making sure you're getting the exact gear that I'm throwing. So if you're not sure about what gear to get and you want to help out the channel a little bit, click those links down below. So as always, we're going to end with a Bible verse, and right now we are in John chapter, it's 8 and 9, so we're on chapter 9. And so it's not necessarily a verse, but a cool little story that I think people need to hear when they're in times of distress. And so, as he passed by, he saw a blind man from birth. And his disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" And so the disciples are asking Jesus why this guy is born blind. Like, what did he do wrong? What did his parents do wrong? Because they're trying to figure out why somebody would be born blind. And this is what Jesus said. Jesus answered, "It was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him." So many times in life we get to asking ourselves, why would good things happen, or why would bad things happen to good people, right? You ask, why is this happening to me? I didn't do anything to deserve this. A lot of times it's not necessarily that God is punishing you for something, but that you might be able to put his works on display later. You know, just because maybe it's a car crash. Maybe it's, you know, I had a buddy that, you know, his wife miscarried. Yeah, all of these different negative things happen in people's life, but what it could be used for is a way to show your faith, how strong your faith is. Or one thing that I look at is that you might be able to help somebody else when they're going through it. Just because you got drugged through the mud doesn't mean it has to end there. You can use what you learned and what you went through to connect with somebody else, to help them come to Jesus and show them that his love, his faith, his strength is so pure that no matter through what hardship, no matter through what, you can still have faith and you can help these people by just having gone through that. So think about that next time you're going through a hardship. One of the things that the guys always talked about in church was, no matter what you're going through, face it with a smile, because there might be a lesson to be learned in it and you might be able to help somebody down the road. Not that you'll see it now, but you might see it 10 years from now. You'll run into somebody going through exactly what you went through, and you could help them through that. So God bless every single one of you. Thank you so much for watching and listening. May God bless every single one of you guys, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.